This is a tofu sloppy joe, and it's really good, like really good, and I'm gonna say, as far as a plant-based sloppy joe, way better than what you would do with like a Beyond or Impossible. So let me show you how to make it. But first, sloppy joes in general are something that I grew up with. It's literally one of my favorite foods, I'll be honest. I couldn't wait for sloppy joe day. So when I stopped eating meat, my basic sloppy joe was pretty simple. I would just use like a textured protein, or in the early days it was the spicy black bean burger from Gardein that I would just kind of break up. But now it's just the textured protein with a little bit of yeast extract or like a nutritional yeast and then some water. Now I'm just using like a fairly hot water. I just mix that up and then just set that aside to allow it to hydrate up. It doesn't take that long. Now the staple growing up in our house for sloppy joes was really simple. Just a green pepper and onion. Now I'm only going to use about half the onion and about half the green pepper. I'm going to chop those up, mince them pretty fine, drop them in a pan with a little bit of olive oil and let those simmer up until the onion kind of softens. Now growing up it was obviously ground beef, but now we're doing the textured protein, and you can see this is pretty hydrated up and there's still some extra liquid there. I'm just going to use that extra liquid because it's going to flavor everything. I'm just going to dump that in the pan. That's about equivalent of a pound of ground beef, and then cook these all together. Now I'm just going to season it pretty heavily with some garlic powder, a few pinches of salt, and a bunch of cracks of fresh black pepper. Now after a few moments of it just kind of everything getting to know each other, now we're going to do the super secret Thompson family recipe. Mom, I'm sorry about giving away the secret here, but essentially it is just almost an entire bottle of ketchup. Now I'm not going to use that here because my mom would let it simmer all day, but I'm going to use a lot of ketchup and then just a little squirt of barbecue sauce. Now I'm just going to mix that together. It already looks pretty good in my opinion. And then we're just going to top it off with just a little bit of water that's going to kind of allow this to simmer everything together for a little bit, and then we'll just kind of reduce it back down. We're simmering it to kind of like caramelize some of the sugars that are in there, darken it a little bit, and also just give everything a moment to work together. This took about 10 minutes and it's already reduced down and it's pretty thick. So growing up, we didn't toast our buns, which I know you all yell at me about, but hey, it's just what I was used to. So I just have a basic, it's a plant-based bun. This is a Dave's Killer bun. I really like these. And yeah, you could see, we could top this off. We could top it pretty high. And I mean, it is going to be sloppy, but for the most of it's going to hold together. Okay, this is the plant-based version of the sloppy joe that I grew up with. Pretty ketchup-y. To me, it's good. To me, there's really nothing better. Took me about 15 minutes to make, even making it plant-based. But it is really good. It's juicy, it has a nice chew, really nice bite, it has all of those flavors that I'm looking for out of a sloppy joe. So when I see other creators making sloppy joes that are like really unique and fancy, like Brian's, I just feel like it's like I gotta try it, I gotta see, does it actually elevate this perfect sandwich? So I've had some pretty good luck making meat out of tofu, and that's came out really good. So I wanted to try that and see if that would be easier, because tofu it's easier to get. It's not gonna be quicker than this, that's for sure, but we're trying to elevate the sloppy joe. So we're gonna do Brian's Sloppy Joseph. We're gonna elevate it into completely plant-based and see if his little tunes and tweaks to the recipe of a simple sloppy joe make it that much better. I'm gonna have another one. Okay, so to get started on our elevated tofu sloppy joe, I'm gonna need 2 blocks of extra firm tofu. Now these have a drained weight of about 14 ounces, and we're trying to get to about a pound of meat to do this recipe. Now I'm gonna be following, like I said earlier, Brian Lagerstrom's recipe. He just came out with an elevated sloppy joe, and I just figured we can elevate it even higher by not using any meat. So I'm gonna drain these, and I'm gonna squeeze them pretty good, just right in the package. It's okay if they crumble up a little bit because we're going for crumbles. So I'm just gonna break the rest of it up with a fork, and we're gonna go kind of larger crumbles. Then just a big hefty pinch of salt and about a teaspoon of Marmite. Just mix it up, and then we're just going to toss that on a baking sheet, a lined baking sheet. I just got one of these sill pads. I love these things. I don't know why I didn't get it earlier. Now we want to make sure that this is spread around fairly evenly. We want enough space between everything so that way it dries out pretty good. Now I have my oven preheated on convection for 250 degrees. We're going to toss these in for about a half an hour. We're going to have 2 rounds here. But that gives us plenty of time for today's sponsor. Hungryroot is a personalized, tech-enabled grocery service that makes eating healthy easy. You tell them a little bit about yourself. Then each week, Hungryroot delivers fresh groceries along with recipes to put your food to use straight to your door. So this is my first time getting a Hungryroot box, and it won't be my last. Monica and I love how great it is, having a whole variety of new, fresh, healthy foods that's been making cooking at home a breeze. And it's been saving a ton of time at the grocery store. There's no more wandering around wondering what we should cook for dinner. First, you start by taking a short, fun quiz before signing up. Share how you like to eat, your dietary needs, and your goals. Whether it's eating more plants, discovering new flavors or recipes, or saving money and or time in the kitchen, which, I mean, all of the above, right? Then you sign up and they send you a personalized weekly deliveries filled with healthy groceries. Now, you can always edit your deliveries and choose exactly what you would like to receive, or let Hungryroot choose for you. That's kind of what I've been doing. When your delivery arrives at your doorstep, you can mix and match with what's already in your fridge, or you can just use any of the recipes they put together for you. I do a little bit of both, to be honest. The groceries are fresh, I can use the recipes, but really, I just love having all of the variety. But as more boxes have been coming, it's more and more personalized. So gang, the first 100 of you to use my code Saucestache will get 40% off your first grocery order with Hungryroot. Use the link in the show notes or go to hungryroot.com and use code Saucestache to get 40% off. Hungryroot, thanks for sponsoring today's video and for sending me all of these amazing groceries. I love you all. Okay, it's been about a half an hour. I know, that was quick. So we're just gonna check on this and then just give it a stir. You can see it's kind of dehydrating up pretty nice. So then we're just gonna pop it back in the oven, let it sit for about another half an hour or so. Now you can see after that second half an hour, it's all dried out pretty nice. It's shrunk down about half the size. Now I'm just gonna toss it into a bowl. I wanna weigh it just to see where I was at. And I actually went a little bit too far. So we're maybe a little under a pound of tofu here. But that's okay. It's gonna all hydrate back up and it's gonna work. It's gonna be fine. Now in Brian Lagerstrom's recipe, he uses a poblano pepper and an onion instead of just like a regular green pepper. So I'm just gonna mince up the poblano, mince up the onion, and then I'll leave his exact recipe so you can get all of the measurements directly from him, along with my new website, which should have all of the updated recipes for any of the new recipes. I'm gonna be going back through and adding old recipes as we go, but it just takes a little bit of time, but at least you'll be able to see new stuff as it's written and released. So that's pretty exciting. Check it out. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the new site. So we got enough of our onion and poblano. It's all minced up. I'm gonna get a pan, like a non-stick skillet with a decent amount of olive oil in it because again, like there's no fat in this tofu. And we're just gonna get that nice and hot. Add in our onions and peppers and just saute those up just for a minute until the onions look a little translucent. And then we're gonna add in our tofu. So I'm gonna toss this around for just a moment. It doesn't need to cook together that long. And then I'm gonna add in the seasoning blend, which just includes some salt, onion powder, garlic powder, black pepper, and some paprika, along with some chili flakes. Now the one thing in Brian's recipe, which I think really makes a big difference, is a few tablespoons of flour. That's gonna add as like a binder, thickener. It's gonna really kind of bring this all together, and I think it's gonna work especially well for a plant-based sloppy joe. So I'm just gonna mix this together and allow it to simmer and continue stirring for just a little bit, so that way the flour kind of like browns onto the tofu, onto the joe stuff. Now Brian's recipe is essentially making a better ketchup and better barbecue sauce and Worcestershire sauce just in the pan. So we're gonna start with some tomato paste. We are gonna add a little bit of ketchup along with yellow mustard. Now I will say, growing up, anytime one of my friends' parents used mustard in their sloppy joes, I hated it. I never liked mustard in sloppy joes. I didn't think it went well together. So I was a little nervous about this. Then we also just wanna add some brown sugar. And I'm just gonna give this a quick mix right here. And then we're gonna add a few other ingredients that are a little off of Brian's recipe. So Brian added like a Worcestershire sauce and he said that's a pretty important ingredient, but Worcestershire sauce isn't plant-based. So I'm just gonna do like a combination of soy sauce and some molasses, which is not super Worcestershire-y, but Worcester does have some molasses in it along with some vinegar, which we're also going to be adding some red wine vinegar, which is part of Brian's recipe. Now he also used a beef bouillon, which I'm just going to replace with Marmite. Now I'm going to give that a quick mix, and then lastly we need to add some broth. In his recipe it's going to be a beef broth. Here we're just going to be using veggie broth. That's going to work just fine. I'm going to add a little bit less because this is tofu. It's already going to be soaking up a decent amount of it. I'll add that change in the recipe on the website. And then that's it. We're just going to bring up the heat, let it simmer down, and we just want it to reduce maybe by about half. It needs to be thick enough to kind of like hold together. You'll know when it's done. It'll be pretty thick and be able to hold kind of on its own. So in this upgraded version, we are going to toast our buns. I'm going to be using some Kite Hill vegan butter. A lot of you recommended this one, so I want to give it a try for my new vegan butter. I'm just going to spread a little bit on each bun, toss them in a pan, toast them, burn them a little bit because, it's me, Saucestache. That's what I do. Now, all we need to do is just top this off. And I mean, look at this sloppy joe really quick. I'm pretty proud of it. You would not know that is from tofu. I mean, this is going to be good. And so we're just going to top this off. You can see we could top it pretty high. And I mean, this is a pretty good looking sloppy joe. So let's see what I have to say. Monica's not really feeling too well, so she'll give it a little bite off camera. Oh my gosh. I forgot a napkin. So yeah, this is much much more elevated. The flavor doesn't just taste like a ketchup sloppy joe, which is what I grew up with. It's what I've always loved. Really has a lot more complexity to it. There is like a more of like a tomato sauce. You can definitely get the tomato paste, but man, it is good. As far as the tofu as the meat, honestly, this is the winner. The texture of this is much better than the textured protein. There's more of a chew. It's denser. The textured protein gets like pretty soft. And I could have made the textured protein and like squeezed out all the liquid, but I really wanted to cook that all down, where this, I was able to dry it out and then rehydrate it with all of these flavors, which are pretty friggin' good. A lot of people don't know this, but it was my dream for most of my life to open up a Sloppy Joe restaurant or like food truck. I had the name, I had everything for it. It's gonna be different types of Sloppy Joes with different types of toppings. So I have an obsession over Sloppy Joes. It's my childhood favorite thing. So I know Sloppy Joes, and this is one I'll definitely be making again, like 100%. I think it's just out of this world.
Can I try some of it?
Yeah.
That is really good. Right.